To the bat, to the bat, to the Batmobile. Let's go.
Days of Future Past. This isn't just a random movie title come up with on the spot. Oh no. This is a title that holds significantly deep resonance to the X-Men community, calling back to one of the single most significant X-Men stories ever written. This is like saying that it's a holy grail of X-Men movies using only 4 words. Some people have essentially been waiting over 20 years for this movie to happen. Not to mention, it's supposed to tie up the continuities of 3 different sets of X-Men movies if you count the Wolverine series. The movie is set up by the old X-Men trilogy cast, with Ian McKellen Magneto and Patrick Stewart Charles Xavier meeting a group of wayward X-Men in a desolate future to send Wolverine's mind back to his body in the 70s to prevent a series of events that lead to a future so bad it involved Bishop, aka the X-Men avatar of terrible futures. It's up to Wolverine to recruit First-Class Magneto and First-Class Charles Xavier to stop Mystique from inadvertently causing the horrible dystopia.
We expected a lot from X-Men Duff, but we were completely caught off guard by the new, darker tone. No longer is the franchise trying to recreate the audience that would have liked the 90s animated series. Now we have to deal with character death on a gruesome and painful scale. I'm just saying, consider yourself warned. But hey, the deaths are flashy and nice. The new X-Men has less fighting than some of the predecessors, opting to focus more on character building, which we'll get to, but the little fighting we see is both flashy and entertaining, so it doesn't disappoint there. And even the parts that aren't bloodletting are pretty flashy, like the times when the shot is done in a 70s newsreel style to reflect what the people would be seeing.
This movie is a movie for the X-Men fans above all else. So many comic book movies are trying to please the masses. It's kind of refreshing from my point to see a movie so uncompromising. It's chock full of glorious nods and treats for fans who understand. Instead of a cameo by Marvel's mascot Stan Lee, there's an appearance by Chris Claremont, the writer who, from 1976 to 1991, truly made the X-Men. And of course, wrote the original story that the movie's title is a callback to. There's very subtle nods, like Kitty Pryde specifically being the one with time travel powers because in the original story, she made the journey. And then there's some that are just plain fan service in the best of ways. I mean, they could have just filled the future with older versions of X-Men everyone knows, but they knew that because it's Days of Future Past, the comic crowd wants to see fan favorite Bishop, and so they gave us Bishop.
Hats off to Peter the Dinklage. Everyone knew he was going to be great, and he is. He's extremely entertaining, even when he's playing a toned-down scientist. But what I really love is that his stature simply is. Being a little person is not played for laughs or even mentioned. It's simply a part of his character. It's not like his role in Game of Thrones, where he was cast specifically because they needed a little person in the role. He's just a great actor, completely nailing it. With any luck, this movie can open up Hollywood to other actors who might not otherwise fit in traditional roles. Sorry for getting preachy, it just had to be said.
Beyond the Easter eggs and other fan treats, there's something else to the movie that causes a discrepancy between the film critic / casual moviegoer's disappointment and the comic reader / X-Men fandom loving this. Sure, there are some holes in the movie, but I found it surprisingly easy to overlook them. This is probably because this was the most unabashedly comic bookiest comic book movie I've ever seen. Captain America was a wide success because of how it tried to be an action movie with comic characters, but Days of Future Past revels in its source material. I mean, instead of just letting First Class be a reboot, Days of Future Past is a whole convoluted retcon to tie in both the old movies while smoothing out the future of the franchise. Movies always want to simply reboot when they go rad. Comics are the medium where they do time travel like this to have their cake and eat it too. Plus, it's a very X-Men kind of story at the core. While every other superhero movie has a definitive the bad guy and everything leads up to one final battle, Days of Future Past is more than that. Without a definitive the bad guy to hate, it frees itself up to have more political and sociological gray areas. Also, that post-credit scene is possibly the best thing ever. My fellow mutants, you all know what it means.
It's surprising then that the movie's weakest point was the writing. Future Past pulls triple duty as a direct sequel to First Class and an indirect sequel to both Wolverine's love letter and the original series. As such, the movie has to cheat some plot points to make sure everything jives, and the result is that it really doesn't. For example, a young version of Colonel Will Stryker is in this movie just so Wolverine has a reason to go crazy when the plot demands it. Also, Professor Xavier's powers have nothing to do with his ability to walk. The bullet in his spine does. But writing metaphors is hard. The movie's poor writing just leaves so many unanswered questions. So here they are, and here's Jeremy to answer them. When and how did Kitty Pryde get the power to send people's minds back in time?
Because something about the original story.
What caused Mystique and Magneto to work together in the first X-Men movies if their origin stories clearly depict them hating each other?
Because they altered the timeline.
Why do all important historic events need to involve mutants? We do important things too.
No, we don't.
If Mystique can't imitate mutant powers, then how can her DNA enable robots to imitate mutant powers?
Aliens.
How does inserting metal into a robot allow Magneto to control the computer systems in said robot?
Because shut up.
Since Quicksilver is in this movie and is teased at the end of Winter Soldier, are they the same character, or worse, different characters with the same name?
Worse.
As a standalone film, Days of Future Past is an exciting summer blockbuster, but it gets really confusing when you try to combine the other universes and try to make sense of it all as a whole. But I think overall, X-Men Days of Future Past earns Fluffernutters' seal of approval.